can, but here we are. Um, so, um, I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me. It's a privilege to speak with all of you. If you have questions in the process of the um, uh, presentation, just do a hand raise and Sean, let me know that somebody is doing that, and we can have discussion whenever we want. The um, presentation should go about 30 minutes, and hopefully we'll have time afterwards for more discussion. Um, New start. Uh, the Treaty for the Further Reduction and Limitation of Strategic Offensive Arms. Uh, Expires February 5th, 2026. It's been an excellent treaty from 2010 to 2020. It did everything that it was supposed to do. Limited deployed weapons, provided for verifications and intrusive in-person inspections. 2020, the intrusive in-person inspections were paused because of COVID, and then there was that pesky war in Ukraine, and we never got it back together. That said, it still worked pretty well. So in this presentation, I'm going to review the current state of nuclear weapons in the world, what New START did and didn't do, the near-term changes that may occur after the treaty expires, and what I would like to see in a next START treaty. Little about me. How did a guy like me end up in a place like this? I quit college in 1966, 60 years ago. God, can you imagine that? I hitchhiked to California to be a hippie, and about 6 months later, I got drafted. I enlisted in the Navy to avoid going to Vietnam. I volunteered for submarine duty because that looked like fun. And the Navy recognized that I was a smart kid and was doing a good job. And they sent me to the University of Colorado to finish an engineering degree and to get a commission as a submarine officer. I was a Cold War warrior, had duties involving nuclear weapons for every stage of my career. I commanded an attack submarine and was directly responsible for the tactical nuclear weapons that I carried on that ship. This was the late 80s, the final years of the Cold War. In 1991, I went to Hawaii to be on the Submarine Pacific headquarters staff as the Force Intelligence Officer, which meant I had my own skiff. And over the next few years, I saw what was happening in Russia at the highest classification levels. And it was clear from both the overhead imagery and other intelligence that Russian submarines were rusting at their piers and not going to sea. It was then around 1993 that I confronted the reality that the U.S. was continuing its aggressive nuclear weapons posture at Cold War levels while the Russians were tied up to the piers. Why were we doing that? Where was the peace dividend? With Russia on the ropes, why was our government continuing a national security strategy based on nuclear annihilation? The Clinton administration was not responding to the opportunity, and I criticized our national security strategy from inside the Navy for the rest of my career. I retired in 1998 after 32 years. Took me a few years to find ground zero. I moved up here. And this was a time when the congressional decision had to be made whether to convert the first eight Trident submarines to Trident 2D5 or not. And what turned out was they built these white elephants called SSGNs that shot conventional cruise missiles, but they did upgrade four. Um, but anyway, that's what got me into Ground Zero, and I've been there ever since. Um, I understand the horrible destructive power of those weapons, and if I fail to do something about it, then I'm complicit. So here I am. Um, the current state of nuclear weapons um, is over 12,000. Um, and these numbers come from the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists Nuclear Notebook. They're freely available. Um, these numbers are rounded off. The ones with the little squiggle are estimates, but they're probably pretty close. The one to look at besides the US and Russia is China. China has been building warheads, primarily ICBM launchers with one warhead per launcher, and not a lot of those will reach the United States. We made a distinction in the slide between deployed warheads and non-deployed or total warheads. Uh, Deployed warheads are what the START controls, and the 1550 is the maximum number of deployed warheads. You can see the numbers here are higher because the treaty counts heavy bombers as one warhead each, where there are actually a lot more air-launched cruise missiles and gravity bombs that are deployed. Um, these weapons are ready to launch. And let's see, I think it's time to move along. Uh, excuse me. And talk, what does New Start do? And what did it do? And it was ratified, as you know, in 2010. And at that time, we were so excited. We wanted to believe that START was a reduction treaty and that it was a stepping stone to further reductions. And 15 years later, it's very clear that we were pretty naive. Um, Successive administrations, both the Republican and Democratic, have shown no interest in lowering the number of deployed warheads below the maximum allowed by the treaty. Um, so there we are. 1550 deployed warheads and 700 launchers. But the great thing that START does and future arms limitation treaties will do is to provide for what the scientists call the gold standard verification protocols that include technical oversight, which is fancy intelligence speak for overhead satellites, open skies, um, intrusive in-person inspections of the weapons facilities, and a long, long list of notifications that are required to occur when whenever anything is going on in the nuclear weapons world, from moving warheads or moving missiles to doing test launches and that sort of thing. We've exchanged over 24,000 notifications in the last 15 years. The weakness of New START is it does not limit non-deployed warheads. So let's take a look at what that means. Um, so non-deployed warheads are operational warheads that are ready to blow up, except they are not mated to a launcher. Or in the case of gravity bombs or air-launched cruise missiles, are not stored near dedicated bomber aircraft. So for the most part, they're stored in bunkers. The U.S. has a very large advantage in strategic reserve weapons, and that's code for weapons that can reach the adversary's land. So they're intercontinental ballistic missiles, either sea launched or land launched. Um, Russia has a lot more tactical non-deployed warheads, and they are considered to be a hedge against war in Europe, where Russia has a less um, uh, strength in conventional arms than NATO. There's a theory, a train of thought that says that allowing New START to expire would be more advantageous to the U.S. because we, with a more powerful strategic reserve, could dominate the world. And with the current administration that views everything as transactional, there's no reason to believe our government would seek to limit arms in the future without a change in leadership. But that's a crystal ball. I don't know. Let's break down what the U.S. Strategic Reserve looks like. Now we're getting closer to home. I was talking earlier, big picture stuff. Um, Sea launched ballistic missiles, that's Trident II missile warheads. We've got 1,000 of them sitting in bunkers, ready to be loaded on missiles. We have 400 ICBMs that are stored at an Air Force base in Wyoming, and they could be uploaded into vacant spots on the Minuteman III ICBMs. The Minutemen are currently loaded with one warhead each, and they have a MIRV capability and could be loaded up to three. And then finally, there's a lot of bombs and air-launched cruise missiles that could be deployed. So what's going to happen after New START expires? This slide, I put a new number 1 in because I wanted to talk about a possible bilateral agreement between the U.S. and Russia to refrain from deploying warheads and launchers in excess of the START limits for 1 year. This was an offer that Putin made publicly last September. In October, Trump said that sounded like a great idea. And then last week, a Russian official announced that Russia was still awaiting a formal response to Putin's offer. I don't know what's going to come of this, if anything. On its face, the offer would extend the treaty limits and not include in-person verification protocols. I think that if it happened, notifications of weapons movements and tests would continue because they prevent misunderstandings. Clearly, both sides have technical means of detecting what's going on, but absent context, that data can always be misinterpreted. So we'll have to just kind of cross our fingers and see what happens with that possible bilateral agreement. Legally, the treaty ends February 4th. It was written explicitly to last 10 years with an option to extend it for 5 more and no option for further extensions. So the idea of extending the treaty is incorrect, but you can still have a bilateral agreement not to violate the treaty while you're negotiating a new treaty. So, what the next thing is the slide we're looking at right now is what could happen, and what can happen is if there's no agreement at Bangor, 1.3 miles from ground zero, there's a mix of about 550 submarine warheads in storage bunkers at the Strategic Weapons Facility. Bear with me for a little arithmetic here. There's 8 ballistic missile submarines at Bangor, and each carries 20 Trident II D5 missiles. And each missile can carry up to 8 warheads, which is a maximum capacity of 160 warheads per submarine. In order to comply with New START, each sub is currently carrying 4 to 5 warheads per missile to carry a total of about 90 warheads on each submarine. So if you fully load those 20 missiles with another 70 warheads, from 90 to 160, that would be, 8 times 7 is 560 warheads. Well, isn't that a coincidence? There's 550 or so warheads that we think are there. And that is what the strategic reserve really is all about. It's waiting for the time when the U.S. is not constrained by the treaty and can fully load. Same thing with the ICBM warheads and the warheads at Kings Bay, Georgia. That's scary, and I don't know if it actually would ever happen. And there's probably some truth that it could happen to some degree. Let's move to the next slide and talk about once you deploy more warheads, what are you going to do with them? And that's where the SIOP comes in. The SIOP is the Single Integrated Operating Plan for Nuclear War. It's a list of targets for each option of the plan. And it is axiomatic that every deployed warhead is assigned a target. You don't just carry the warheads around with nothing to do with them. So what we're talking about is essentially doubling the number of deployed warheads, which doubles the number of targets. And don't kid yourself, there is a post-New START target set on the shelf waiting for the treaty to expire and the warheads to be uploaded. Next slide, please. Somebody asked me about this last bullet. You'll recall that during the early years of the New START, the Trident ballistic missile submarines that were originally built with 24 tubes deactivated 4 launch tubes in each submarine. I'm not familiar with the technical aspects of how they were deactivated, but it was permanent, and a shipyard availability would be required to reactivate them. Basically, the Ohio class submarines are currently are very close to beginning their cycles of decommissioning. Um, and the Columbia class will be replacing them in the near term by the turn of the next century. Next century? Is that what they call it? Next decade. Um, and those submarines are only going to have um, 16 launch tubes per sub and no more than 12 submarines, which adds up to a total number of launch tubes of 192. So there's really no reason that the Navy could justify reactivating the launch tubes when in the future their number of launch tubes is going to be substantially less. And also reactivating those launch tubes, which would mean loading an additional 56 missiles uh, that are not in the inventory right now. So we'd have to build 56 missiles in order to load them up. Um, so I don't, again, see that happening. Um, but somewhere down the road, um, there's going to be a next start. And this is my wish list. Um, and I've talked about this in other presentations as um, a means to move from our current state to a level where we can negotiate complete uh, nuclear uh, nuclear abolition. Um, so first start, we would reduce the launcher and warhead limits to achieve a minimum deterrent, 500 warheads with no reserve. What does that really mean? Let's see, did I put the minimum deterrent slide in there? Yes, there's minimum deterrence is a application of deterrence theory that a state possesses no more nuclear weapons than are necessary to deter an adversary from attacking. And if you're at a minimum deterrence level, a first strike won't work because if the first strike fails, you're going to be defeated. Um, and so it's an automatic no first use policy. Secondly, counterforce makes no sense. Counterforce attacks are designed to destroy the adversary's nuclear weapons. The problem is it takes lots of weapons and it's ineffective against sea-based systems. So you won't see a counterforce attack. And then finally, minimum deterrence can't support nuclear umbrellas for our allies. That provides motivation for NATO states and the Pacific allies to not rely on that nuclear umbrella and therefore to join the treaty for the prohibition of nuclear weapons. How do we get to minimum deterrence? That's the next slide. And this is just one way, and it's a formula, but decommission all the ICBM silos, 450 of them. ICBMs are, to me, unstable in that they are easy targets and that causes there to be a use them or lose them urgency about shooting ICBMs early in a conflict. Just get rid of them. Second, decommission all of the current bombers. That's 46 B-52s and 19 B-2s. And curtail the B-21 program. You know, I arbitrarily said curtail it to 20 bombers. I'd love to curtail it to zero, but we're trying to sell something to the U.S. government as well as Russia, and I don't think anybody's ready to um, totally abolish nuclear weapons in the next start. So curtail B-21 to 20 bombers, decommission all the Ohio class SSBNs, curtail the Columbia class to 8, and then remove all the tactical warheads from Europe. And so what's it going to look like after that? Um, Next slide, please. And this is what we would have left. 20 bombers, each with 2 warheads, and 8 ballistic missile submarines, each with about 55 to 60 warheads, for a total of about 500. Again, this is pie in the sky, something that I've thought about. There are a lot of studies that talk about minimum deterrent, and for the U.S., that translates to somewhere between 300 and 800 warheads, depending on what study you look at. So I picked 500. But there's more to start than just warheads and launchers. You have to address the verification and the verification of warhead dismantling and launcher decommissioning. Not hard. We've been doing that for years at every level of start with the Russians. The key has been verification. What was it, Reagan? Trust but verify. The third bullet is really important because if you have a pit, you can make a bomb. And currently, there are over 15,000 pits stored at the Pantex site in Texas. There's no plan to destroy them. The Department of Energy is currently funded to produce new pits. And that is just so wrong and so insane, it makes me sick. And finally, I said earlier, China is increasing its nuclear weapons posture. If there was a massive reduction in the number of weapons that the U.S. and Russia had, we would need China to stem its plans for nuclear weapons expansion in order for that to work. I just saw a question down there that said, "What's a pit?" And a pit is, if you think of a pit in a peach, it's that seed inside the bomb. And it really is the size of a small bowling ball, and it weighs a ton because it's plutonium, and that is the place where a thermonuclear weapon, the fusion process takes place. So outside of the pit is the uranium the uranium and plutonium that explode into the pit and cause it to be compressed, and then that's when the fusion reaction takes place. And again, the pits really last for a long time. These are pits that came out of obsolete weapons, and you can build a bomb around a pit. So, this is my dream. Maybe not in my lifetime, but enter negotiations under Article 6 of the Non-Proliferation Treaty. um, including all nine of the nuclear weapon states, including the two or three that are not parties to the NPT. Um, and that commitment has been made by almost all the nuclear weapon states to complete disarmament under United Nations control. And then finally, the TPNW, Treaty for the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, includes the protocols for verifications under a safeguards agreement with the IAEA. And that's the way it will end. And the last slide says something like, oh, yeah, verification. Verification is so important. And the great powers, China, US, Russia, and the EU, must commit to permanent funding of inspection protocols just to keep everything honest. It's that simple. And thank you. Peace is possible. We have time for questions. Do we have time for questions?
We do, and I think maybe we'll start with Don, who has had a few in the chat. Um, Don, do you want to go ahead and ask one of your questions?
Yeah, sure. I'll ask it by voice. Um, so there are many anti-nuclear activists who say that anything less than a total elimination of nuclear weapons is unacceptable for them, and maybe that's a division in the movement. Um, I mean, I I would think that just lowering, just having limits is better than nothing. But please comment on that opinion.
Yeah, I'm kind of a practical guy. Um, and I want to think in terms of what's possible. And I don't believe that a single step to abolition is possible. Um, for one thing, the US and Russia have 90% of the weapons. Until the US and Russia decide to abolish nuclear weapons, nobody else will. So that's why I think a phased approach is the way to go.
Question from Alpana, and then Don, if no one else chimes in, we can add you back to the stack.
Yeah, my question is, how do we abolish nuclear weapon when you are giving those explanation that there is no way, but there should be some kind of way that we can try. And the second thing that I wanted to ask, as many people have asked here, how are pits stored currently,
Okay.
especially in
Well,
Washington?
first question is I believe that both we and the Russians and the Chinese need new leadership, progressive leadership, who have the courage to take a phased approach to nuclear weapons reductions leading to abolition. And the Non-Proliferation Treaty, Article 6, has the means to do that. But I just can't see how the other seven nuclear weapon states could or would abolish nuclear weapons as long as the US and Russia have such a massive advantage. So it's for us and the Russians to get together um, again with more courageous leadership than we have today in order to make those massive reductions. The second question was, how do you destroy a pit? Was that the question?
You store it currently.
Oh,
How do-
how are the pits stored?
Yes.
Not very securely. I've seen a picture of they're just in containers in a warehouse that's a bunker in Pantex, Texas, and they really look like they're trashy, and the picture is there's water on the floor, and it's uh they're 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 just being stored there, and they've been stored there for many, many decades.
Is it unsafe at the moment?
I can't say it's unsafe. Um, the a pit by itself is not going to explode, um, but it is subject to being stolen, and then uh, a state actor or a non-state actor could make a bomb. That's the fear there. And getting rid of those pits, I think, is vital as we talk about what what it means to abolish the weapons and to limit the weapons. You don't want to have 15,000 potential new weapons that could be built pretty easily.
Okay, we'll go Joanne and then Steve.
Thank you.
First, I'd like to clarify that I've attended 2 meetings of the TPNW, the states that have ratified it. And the next meeting is going to be held in November. And they were asking South Africa to take the lead in organizing it. And why South Africa? Because that was the one country that was on the road and had developed a nuclear weapon and could model what to do with a nuclear weapon to answer essentially the previous question that we had. So that is going to be part of the presentation next November in New York when they have that meeting. And also, aren't plutonium pits stored either in Hanford? I know they're stored in Los Alamos, and I think
Los
they were
Alamos,
increasing.
the primary place, the 15,000 are at Pantex, which is in Amarillo, Texas. I don't know that there are. I don't know where the other pits are.
Well, they are in Los Alamos. We know
Okay.
of folks there who are trying to protest because they're trying to increase the number of pits that are being created in Los Alamos. And so the resistors in New Mexico are trying to work on that.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
I know Steve had a question, but it looks like he lost his connection and is trying to.
I'm back, Sean.
Oh, welcome back.
Sean?
Yeah, go ahead and ask your question, Steve.
Yeah, my computer died and I forgot to plug it. Yeah, Tom, thanks so much. I'd love you to reflect on the time when Reagan and Gorbachev, shook hands, came close to saying absolute. What are the lessons that we, again, need to rethink and relearn from the partial success they had back then?
Well, it all fell apart when Reagan thought that he could build a golden dome. The idea of a viable anti-ballistic missile system has never come to fruition, despite billions and billions and billions of dollars being thrown at it. It's just too hard a problem. Yet we've got a government right now that is continuing to to try to develop a system that makes us immune from somebody else's ballistic missiles. And that is really unstable, because if you think you're immune, and then it makes it a whole lot easier to start a war, doesn't it? That so part of any um, a negotiation has to be the idea of the anti-ballistic missile systems that may or may not work. I think they probably work a little bit better than they did in the movie. Um, uh, but there are so many ways to defeat um, those systems. And as you increase the number of warheads and make the warheads more sophisticated in terms of having countermeasures and dummies, the weapons are going to get through, no matter what Donald Trump says about the Golden Dome. It's a slogan. It's not a system.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Just what about the pivot that Reagan made from great hawk to being willing? Is there any feelings you've got or statements about how we deal with the various administrations and trying to bring people, how we bring them to the table when it seems impossible?
Uh, Boy, if I knew that answer, I'd be getting the Nobel Peace Prize. I don't know. You have to find the leaders, and you have to believe that the leaders will come. They killed Navalny. He was a hope. Um, and who is going to be the next president of the United States? And will the next president of the United States be able to negotiate with a Russian leader who is not named Putin? Um, the current leadership of the great powers um, make massive reductions more and more difficult. Yet there is a willingness, I think, to talk about them. The gesture that Putin made to extend the limits pending negotiation of a new treaty, I thought was a real step in the right direction. The question is, can they negotiate a treaty that doesn't include a hotel in Moscow? I mean, it's all transactional for that guy, and I just can't. It's very hard to be optimistic with the current leadership.
Well, Tom, on that cheery note, let's go ahead and thank you for your time with us. Folks can join me in a virtual round of applause if you'd like. Um, really appreciate your insights and knowledge here. And of course, I have to say that, we know that Reagan was moved by the movement. Reagan was not a smart guy. Trump is not a smart guy. Um, so it comes back to us. It comes back to what we can do. So I want to transition our conversation now to